I'm buying the Glenn Powell hype.
Hello, Adam Ryan Donato.
Hello, welcome back to another Hard Review, and I am here to talk about the latest Glenn Powell film, Twisters, which Glenn Powell's having quite the year for himself because not only was Hitman a big critical success, but also he saw a lot of his box office success for Anyone But You in January. That movie had wonderful legs. Now, Twisters is directed by Lee Isaac Chung, who did Minari. Minari was a heavy favorite during the 2021 Oscars for 2020 movies. Now, that was a smaller year where there wasn't really as much competition, but that shouldn't take anything away from the success of Minari. Minari is a fantastic film. The grandma won Best Supporting Actress for this film. It's just a movie about the American dream. I hope that the success of Twisters really opens people's eyes to the quality director that Lee Isaac Chung is and goes out and sees Minari, because ever since that award season, we just completely forgot that movie. It's funny, there's a few award season movies every single year that are like, they're gonna be really popular during award season for like a couple months, and then you're never going to hear about them again. Like, no one talks to me about Minari. Now, Twisters, I had seen the original about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, and that was my first time watching it. I had more experience with the franchise through the ride at Universal Studios. Not really a ride, more of like a show type thing, because you go into a thing and then they simulate a twister and the cow goes up in the air. I remember it being decently fun, like it was a cool thing to experience, because it really leaned into the aspect of Universal Studios where it was like, oh, well, we're about making movies. It's like you're on a movie set. Here's movie magic. Here's how we do these practical effects. And we just don't see that as much anymore. The disaster ride / show thing is gone. They still have the Universal Monsters makeup thing, which is one of my favorite things to do at Universal Studios. When I watched the film for the first time, Twister, I thought it was good. Like, I really liked the practical effects. I really liked the cast. The story, the whole thing about like the divorced couple trying to rekindle their marriage through their love of tornado hunting, I thought that was fine. But yeah, I gave that one like a 3 out of 5. So going into this one, I wasn't too crazy excited, except for the fact that it starred Glenn Powell, who, like I said at the beginning of the video, has just completely taken the world by storm. He has his mentor, Tom Cruise, who is giving him all the right advice, because things seem to be turning out really well for Glenn Powell. And he's saying all the right things. I think Glenn Powell is wonderful in this movie. He's got all of the charisma and charm that you would want from him. He's very good looking in the film. I thought the movie was going to play up his sex appeal a little bit more, but the most we got at that is the tight white t-shirt. I'm a straight man, but game recognizes game. His co-star in the film is Daisy Edgar Jones, who some may know from, I'm pretty sure she's in Fresh. I know her more from Where the Crawdad Sings. Now, not that the first one was a big like sex appeal type movie, but like I also thought that going into this one that the romantic pairing of Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar Jones was interesting. Didn't really buy Daisy Edgar Jones as much in this movie as I would have liked to. The blonde look didn't really fit her very much, but I thought she was generally okay. She's clearly outshined by Glenn Powell here. I liked her internal conflict, and I like how the movie focused on her, whereas the original is kind of focusing more on this relationship. Here, she has the backstory showing her traumatic past when it comes to storm chasing, and then now she is joining up into the fight again, and then her group rivaling with Glenn Powell's group, her budding relationship with Glenn Powell, and her friendship with Anthony Ramos. I thought these were very interesting threads, and I thought it was a lot more focused, whereas I feel like the divorce storyline just didn't really feel like it had much going on with what we're actually trying to accomplish here. When it comes to the supporting cast, it's really hard to beat Philip Seymour Hoffman, but I did like Anthony Ramos here. I just felt like I didn't get his character fleshed out enough. They tried to kind of do this like love triangle thing with him. I could clearly tell he had some kind of romantic interest, which I didn't really feel like that was well set up from the beginning. So when it started to develop, I was like, whoa, where did this come from? The movie's about how corporations are predatory upon people who live in impoverished places. The best decision that I made is I saw this movie in 4DX. One of my coworkers is a really big fan of this movie, was really anticipating it heavily, and his excitement was really infectious. I did tell him that I'm gonna kind of have the Aquaman effect with this movie, where when the first time I saw Aquaman, it was in IMAX on opening night. My buddy's favorite superhero is Aquaman, so like we were all super hype and we had a great time, and I was like, oh, great, I hope I never watch this movie again, and then every time I've watched it again, it's gotten worse. I think I gave that movie a 4 out of 5 the first time I watched it, and then I dropped it down to a 3. This, I feel like I'm gonna have the same type of beat with, because I watched it with someone who was a big fan. I watched it at an early fan event screening. I watched it in 4DX, which this is the perfect kind of movie, I think, to watch in 4DX. The wind, the water, the movement all around, like that really adds to a lot of the action sequences in the movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. I know a lot of people look down on the 4DX experience, and I don't really even do it very often. It wasn't even my idea to do it. But when the opportunity was presented to me, I was like, yeah, this is appropriate. I think the original film is better in a lot of ways. I like the practical effects of the original. I didn't really feel like I got as much of that here. I'm sure there's plenty of it that is more practical than I think, but there's some definitive sequences in the original movie that are awesome, like, and practical, and there's nothing really here that I'm like, oh my god, do you remember that thing? How did they pull that off practically? But I think it's a really good movie. I think it's really fun. I think it's more of a 3 out of 5, but I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 4 out of 5. I'm riding the high, and if you feel it, chase it. So I am really jazzed to give a 4 out of 5 to Twisters. Go out to your local Cineplex and check out Twisters in theaters. It's emotional, it's fun, it's romantic, it's a little funny here and there. It's a good time at the theaters. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Like, comment, subscribe, and why don't you guys tell me what your favorite natural disaster type movie is? Like, let's think like apocalypse-y type, like a Deep Impact. Don't answer Deep Impact. I don't have a correct answer, but I have the wrong answer. I really didn't like that movie Into the Storm when I was younger. Freddie from iCarly's in that.